Entrepreneurs, what is up? How you guys doing? Dustin, how you doing today?
Doing good. It's Friday.
You know, all the days are blending together when you're grinding. I'm telling you. Don't even say it.
I was about to.
If you've been with us before, yeah, okay. He dropped it. Thank you for tuning in to the Non-Corporate Network. You are watching Entreprenews, a combination of CNBC and ESPN. We debate the top 6 trending small business stories, bring it to you. Dustin, you know, we noticed that there was a lot of controversy with the media networks over the last few months in terms of what's true, what isn't true, what is being diluted. So I'm going to tell them about kind of the mission with NCN and what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, non-corporate network. So it's a network that we're building out, going to have different TV shows under it, but essentially it's all geared towards entrepreneurs, those who are hustling, grinding. Just a different way to bring news to entrepreneurs.
Awesome. No, I love it. And, you know, again, this is content by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. So as long as you're not sitting in a cubicle right now, you are allowed to be watching this. But yeah, thank you guys for being with us. I'm excited to get into it. Our format is that, you know, like I mentioned, we pick the top 6 stories. Dustin and I debate those stories for 3 minutes each. I defeat Dustin each week, and it's kind of just like a recurring thing where I always come out on top. It's kind of funny, like how that's been working out. Huh?
It's a bit biased, but
well, without further ado, you ready to get into our first story here?
Let's dive in.
Okay, so politicians, police, and Panera, geofencing is taking over. For those of you that aren't familiar with what geofencing is, essentially it means that you're using location data to isolate who is or was at a given venue at a given time. It's everywhere. Whether you are pulling up to Panera to get your food, they're being notified that you're there. Whether you're at Walmart pulling up to pick up your groceries, they're getting notified that you're there. What kind of risks does this pose as it relates to the government having this kind of information as well as businesses having this kind of information? And what are your thoughts on how geofencing is evolving?
Yeah, I mean, obviously knowing what people are doing, where they're going, I mean, that's a lot of insight that people can take from it. I mean, it's all about how you use it. I mean, from a marketing perspective, I love it. I mean, you know, if you have the app installed, if you go to a certain, I mean, Groupon does it really well. If you go, you know, we're here in Tempe. If I go to Scottsdale, get a push notification saying the hottest restaurants in Scottsdale. I mean, it's all about efficiency, and that's what people are wanting. And so, but I mean, just like everything, the more data you have on someone, I mean, it could be used for bad. I don't know if there's any laws or anything written about it. I doubt there is because it's pretty new.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it creates efficiencies, so it's great for consumers.
I mean, I have a quote here from the story we took, and it says, while geofencing has helped solve some murders and home invasions, it has also led to mistaken arrests of people who were near a crime but had no role in it. They're the digital equivalent of searching bags of every person walking along Broadway because there was a theft in Times Square. I think that's interesting. I mean, you know, obviously the same way, like I heard that there was like a Alexa that had a transcript of like a crime and was able to, but it's like, do we just give all of that data away for the few instances that maybe help to solve a crime? I think that there's just as many risks that are being posed by the government having that data as well as these corporations knowing exactly what we're doing at any given time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I think we've mentioned on previous episodes where it's now that we see how it's being used and what it can be used for, I think now let's have a discussion around how it could be used. I mean, to your point, it's just because there was a theft on Times Square, you know, you can't go and look at everyone's bags. I mean, it could help with evidence and stuff like that, but I think it shouldn't be the only thing that you know, leads to an arrest. I mean, you got to have other evidence to be able to do that, but yeah.
I compare it to the you have to check a box to acknowledge the terms and services, and it's like, well, I'm not going to read that, but I want to use the product, so I'm just going to check it. It's kind of like that seems to be what we're doing with location data right now, where it's like, oh yeah, I'll give them my location because I've got to, you know, I want to know when the delivery driver's coming, but then on the back end, it's not just, oh yeah, let me know your location this one time. It's like, let me know everything that you're doing on your phone. Let me know everything about where you go, what you do, how long you spend at places. And it's like, that's not just geofencing anymore. Now we're talking about much more than a simple geofence. Exactly. So definitely a risk there. Cool. Well, diving into our next story, Twitch Studio launches on Mac in beta. Today, Twitch launched a proprietary streaming software, Twitch Studio, on Mac, according to a blog post on its website. I think this is a smart move. I think it's giving more access to people to use the product. Notoriously, Mac users are creators and creatives, and so it seems to make sense that they're kind of making it a little more accessible for Mac users. But what are your thoughts on Twitch and how it's going to grow and, where they fit into the market?
Yeah, I mean, it's live streaming is a growing thing. I mean, it's a new way to deliver content. It's how we're doing this and how we're, going to build out NCN essentially. But yeah, I mean, opening it up to more people, you're going to have more people using it. And so I think there's just going to be more. I think it's going to be literally the future of kind of television, where it's more, I mean, reality TV has blown up. Everyone likes it, and so I mean, there's going to be more people that, I mean, granted, just going live every once in a while, I mean, it's not going to catch much attention, but if you create something around it, like a cooking show or cleaning show, whatever it may be, so yeah, it's going to allow more people to create, which then more people are going to be able to watch, and there's going to be more adoption. So I'm interested to see how that evolves.
Twitch is throwing down the gauntlet. I think that they look at it as something where they're a step ahead, and just so you know, I mean, Amazon owns Twitch. They bought it, so this is something. Yeah, right. It's like something where I look at this and I go, okay, Twitch is definitely trying to make themselves more accessible than just the gaming community. They kind of gave up being an only gaming platform when Microsoft came out with their product, and so they were like, we want to open this up to everybody. They're letting people, musicians, stream and everything else, and so they're a step ahead in terms of the monetization piece and the subscription piece from Facebook. But Facebook's announced that they're doing all sorts of different ways to help monetize creators' content, create live streams, pre-recorded live streams. So I think it's going to be a race to see, can the social network of Facebook kind of beef up their product to compete with Twitch from a live stream perspective, or can Twitch beef up their product to compete from a social network perspective? But knowing that Amazon owns it tells me that they're trying to get into the social networking space for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's going to come down to who can incentivize the creators more, because, I mean, if you incentivize it, you got more people creating, you got more content being pushed out, which then you're going to have people tuning in to that. So, I mean, it'll be, I mean, you got two companies with just, I mean, unlimited budget, essentially, it seems like. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, who would you like to see kind of win that battle?
Hey, I think that I think Facebook has a leg up in the sense that they don't have to get people to transition over to their product. Also, notoriously, the live streaming stuff, even on Twitch, is kind of confusing, which is why they're launching this simple Mac version to try to help the creator studio, help people to be able to create that content a little bit easier. But I think that, I don't want to see Amazon pick up any more market share and anything else. So I hope Facebook wins.
It's almost like who's the lesser two evils.
I wouldn't be able to tell you that. But I digress. Moving right along, Senate Republicans want to make it easier to sue tech companies for bias. On Wednesday, a group of Senate Republicans introduced a new proposal to limit the immunity granted by Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act. Essentially, this limits what can be put out there on social media. It essentially creates a responsibility for these social media companies like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter to be monitoring the content and policing it. They're not just a platform anymore. They're now kind of a media company. And so that by doing that, it's created a lot of, not necessarily controversy, but a lot of new infrastructure is having to go into place. A lot more of a budget is having to be allocated towards content moderators on these platforms. But what do you think about adding more content moderators and kind of controlling the narrative more?
I mean, I'm glad that there's some discussion around it. I think publishers or social media companies have really been playing, both sides of the fence, whatever makes sense to them or whatever helps them out, where it's like, well, we're not liable for what they say, but we shouldn't be taxed as publishers and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's definitely, I think, a step in the right direction, but, there's also some downsides to it where, if they're held liable, now they have more freedom to limit what people are saying. So, I mean, it goes back to that First Amendment type of stuff. I mean, we think we're going to be sued for that, so we're not going to post that. And so I see what lawmakers are trying to do in order to limit, I guess, the fake news. but you also might be empowering them to do more of that, because now they can fall back on the excuse, well, oh, we didn't post it because I didn't want to be sued. It could have been taken the wrong way. And so now you're kind of giving them more freedom and flexibility to
Yeah.
post
I think
whatever they want.
I think it's done completely wrong. I think that the idea is good, but they're doing it completely wrong, and it comes down to you've got a bunch of white-haired men trying to make policies around social media, and it doesn't make sense. I think that they're doing it the wrong way, and the reason I think that is that we saw it happen with Cambridge Analytica. We saw what happened with advertising, and the fact that Facebook is a judge, jury, and executioner of what kind of advertising content gets out there and what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. And so that obviously swayed multiple global elections, including our own election in the U.S. And so you're essentially empowering them to do the same thing with native content now that they are already doing with advertising content, where it does impede on our First Amendment right, and it gives them the ability to write it off as we're policing content. We don't want anything else bad out there. It's just like now every piece of content on our platform is being censored to what we want it to be, as opposed to just advertising content. So, Congress, get somebody that's under the age of 40 to come in here and talk about what needs to happen with social media, because you guys aren't doing it the right way, even though the thought's there, the execution isn't.
Yep. We'll see what happens as we move forward. So on to the next story. Kroger stunned with 92% e-commerce growth. So we got more people that are ordering their groceries online, whether it's through the app or on the website. I love it. I'm wondering if it's just going to be, a blip with coronavirus going on. Once we get past it, is that number gonna stay there? But I think it's going to continue, because people are going to realize how much more efficient it is to just have your list, order it, don't have to leave the house, gets delivered to you. I mean, fries, if you order anything over $35, it's free delivery. People are always complaining that there's not enough time in the day, and so this will just open up a bit more time. What are your thoughts on just e-commerce grocery shopping?
Yeah, I can't debate the fact that the 92% number is a trend, and it's pulling away share of what those in-person shoppers are doing. A lot of people were kind of on the fence about doing it. They're like, I don't want somebody else touching my produce, and then they get a taste of what that actually feels like. It's not that bad. I can just wash my produce at home, and they picked out the best ones for me. It's like, so I see why it's a trend, but my personal thought is that I'm against having all of this continue to snowball, because we're losing our humanity as people. I think that the human experience comes down to being social, being around other people, going somewhere outside of your house. And if we're kind of conditioning the next generation into, you never have to leave, you never have to talk to anybody, what are we doing in terms of our social, we have all these social injustices happening. Are we just going to eliminate social from human to human interaction, where now there's a screen involved and everything? I just think that we're losing who we are as humans, and I don't want to look back and tell my grandkids, I remember when I used to go to school and I used to go to the grocery store. I think those are foundational things that us as humans, is part of our experience. So, that's my stance on this.
Chaz, 4 carrier pigeons and typewriters.
Hey, man.
I don't see too many people making friends in the grocery store. So by not going to the grocery store, you can go out, maybe to happy hour with a friend. It's all about what you do with the time. It's just like everything else. You could either squander it or take advantage of it. And so with that extra time, I'd rather do more of these, or go to Topgolf, or do whatever it is to
That's
actually
the thing.
interact with people.
Most of the people are taking that time and going, sweet, I can play my video games longer and not talk to another person for longer. And so it's like, yeah, you think that might incentivize people to get out and do more, but the whole shelter in place thing on top of this is a whole nother layer of, let's keep you indoors and not do anything, and just kind of continue to interact on your screens and spend more time. People are spending more time on social media. You can't argue that. You can't argue the fact that people are spending more time on Zoom, on the internet, watching Netflix. So it's not producing more go out and do something else. It's producing more stay at home, don't talk to anybody.
Yeah. Yep. On to the next story. So in Jemima, after 131 years, they're scrapping the logo, basically being stereotypical racism. They've been around forever. The syrup is great, but what I wonder is, I mean, with everything going on, does this mean that, every brand is going to have to rebrand? What does this mean for other brands? I mean, you got like the Washington Redskins. I know that they've been in the news a couple times about their name. I know you mentioned, the Florida Gators, they had to get rid of their chant. I mean, are we going down a path where, maybe we're getting too PC? I mean, I understand having the acknowledgement of, the not so great stuff that's going on, but at what point is it maybe crossing the line and forcing brands to have to really rebrand themselves?
I mean, I approach this conversation very sensitively because, I understand that there are a lot of injustices happening and the system does need to change. With that being said, I don't believe that any business that's over 75 years old now has to rebrand because the origins were founded during, before African Americans could vote, or before, when this was still segregated, was when Coca-Cola started. And so if people were racist when they, like, everything has been going on for multiple generations in the U.S., you could find, a racist person in any organization if you look back 100 years. And so, I mean, I look at this as something where, are these things, I mean, for Aunt Jemima, I completely understand where they're coming from there, but are some of these things going to propel us forward? And maybe we focus more as a business on, what are your values? Preach those values more, but know that we're 3 generations removed from some of this stuff in terms of the people that are running companies now. And so I think that especially with our economy being as hit as hard as it has been, the wrong move is to continue to kind of microanalyze and read between the lines of everything and start trying to hurt more profitability of businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it is a fine balance. And I think going, like you said, I mean, what we've mentioned before is really identify yourself. What do you stand for? What are your values? And really preach that. But yeah, I mean, it's wondering if we might get to a point where we can't have any logos or branding on shirts or hats or anything. I mean, now, social media companies are going to limit what we can say. I mean, would hate to go down the path where everything starts getting stripped away in terms of our rights of what we can say and stuff like that. I mean, can't say it enough that obviously some change needs to happen, but it could be detrimental in terms of businesses and all of that.
Yeah.
If we go too far down a certain path. I mean, what was it that Florida can't say no?
Gator bait.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like and again, as sensitive as I can be, I understand that corporations have an obligation, especially with the money that they have in the bank, to be able to influence change. Billionaires have an obligation to influence change. And so I think that, you can do that without stripping away everything that you have created over the last 150 years as a business. But, it'll be interesting to see,
Yep. So on to our final story. Kim Jong-un in North Korea has quietly assembled a 7,000-man cybersecurity army. Their focus is to attack infrastructure, critical infrastructure like power plants, dams. I mean, there's a lot that can be done. And what they're basically noting is that, we're all worried about nuclear weapons and stuff like that, but I think there's a lot more harm that could be done, with cyber warfare. I mean, something you mentioned right before this, where I think it was the Die Hard thing that you mentioned, where, they make all lights green. I mean, there's a lot that can be done.
Bruce Willis is getting old. I don't know if he can save us this time, man. I don't know. No, I think, a lot of these things kind of go under the radar. A couple years ago, Atlanta's entire computer system was held for ransom for $7,000 Bitcoin per device. And so I think that things like this are more accessible ways for countries like North Korea or China to kind of manipulate pieces of our kind of infrastructure. If they know that they're not going to compete from a military standpoint, this is a much easier way to compete. And, I was talking to a buddy of mine that works for the unemployment office, and they literally using computers from 1981. And it's like, I'm sure that those are a little more at risk than fully encrypted systems that Apple and Amazon are creating. And so it's like, why are we not updating our stuff? Why are we not having more of a focus on this security aspect? And I get it, like floppy disks can't be hacked. So like, I mean, that's great, but 40 years, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it's you got to update something.
Yeah, I mean, obviously don't know the national budget and everything like that, but at what point do we maybe scale back on building the military? And
Yeah.
then, I mean, this is,
It's part of the military,
yeah,
I think.
yeah.
You know?
I mean,
Yeah.
cyber security, I think, is definitely part. And like what you're saying with older systems, I mean, we're only getting more vulnerable, especially with the more data we're collecting. I mean, there's a lot that can be done. I mean, we mentioned before, Amazon doesn't pay any taxes. What if their tax was certain
Yep.
amount of space or secure,
Yep.
whatever it is? I mean, we have a ton of huge tech companies that, you know, they're doing a ton on the security side that maybe they can give, you know, some of their knowledge or IP to help, you know, secure some of our systems.
Well, and I mean, I think that we look at this. I mean, going back to the first story with geofencing, these companies that are owned foreign entities such as TikTok, I bring it up all the time, they are geofencing. They have the acknowledge terms and services button where they're monitoring our every move, and they understand what people are doing from age 10 to 25 in the US from like a minute by minute basis. What kind of intel is that going to create if you have a 7,000 man cybersecurity network and you know everything about pieces of our population? You can do some damage in terms of, you know, strategically what systems you hack and what you do. And so I think it's a risk that we're not really thinking about because we've got big guns, and it's like that. It takes more than big guns to, you know.
David and Goliath.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to be just as risk in other ways. So I'll tell you who's not at risk is Avantage. They're growing and growing. If you guys are an entrepreneur looking to fill your excess capacity, what better place to look than Avantage.com? You sign up, you get $150 of free credit. It's like we're giving away free money here, people. Go sign up, you get $150. You could use that towards a bookkeeper. You could use that towards legal advice. You could use that towards hiring us to do some marketing for you. So, you know, there's all sorts of ways. But yeah, a couple thousand business owners in Phoenix actually on Avantage. So check them out if you need some help.
Yeah, only makes sense.
Yep. Do you have anything else you want to add today?
No, just appreciate you guys tuning in. I mean, it's been fun kind of getting this built out, evolving.
You guys know where you're tuned in. NCN, it's going to be a household name, non-corporate network. Again, you guys are watching Entreprenews. If you have other stories that you want to share with us, you want to get involved in the conversation, please reach out to us, ncnbroadcast.com. You can find us at entreprenews.ncn on Instagram and Entreprenews on Facebook. We want to hear from you. And if you have an idea for a show that you want to do, we also want to hear from you. Check us out, ncnbroadcast.com. Again, fill out a form. We want to talk to you about what kind of channel you want to bring to the world. And if we can help you do that, then we want to do so. It doesn't matter if you're in Tempe or you're in Taiwan. You know, we'll make it happen. Yeah, thank you guys for being with us. Again, my name's Chaz Vandemotter.
Dustin Trout.
We will see you on Monday. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend and get after it.